program Ms. Inger Anderson to deliver her opening remarks.
Good morning, and let me start also by thanking you, dear Chair, Ambassador Luis Valdivieso, for your extraordinary leadership. We would not be here, we would not have reached as far as we have without it. Let me also thank you, dear Catherine Schneeberger, State Secretary, for opening the doors and the warm welcome that we have received here in beautiful Geneva and in beautiful Switzerland. And of course, let me thank my dear colleague, Diotimato Philip, the Executive Secretary, who has been leading this, and of course all the many colleagues behind her. But most of all, allow me to thank you, delegates, who have worked so hard to get us to this place. Also allow me to express appreciation to observers for their engagement throughout. So together we stand here with a warm welcome to this resumed session of the negotiation of the legally binding instrument to end plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. And my deep thanks to all for all the efforts that have gotten us here. Because almost 3.5 years have passed since that historic adoption at the United Nations Environment Assembly Resolution 5.14 in 2022. And it's now high time for member states to get the deal over the line. And today this means, of course, rolling up our collective sleeves, so to speak, and getting into the contact groups. And therefore, I will be brief. You face 10 days of intensive negotiations. You know this, and you know that you will have to work with hard work and long nights and determination, as you have done in all the other sessions before. And you also know that this will require the spirit of solidarity and compromise and understanding, as you have done before. But I believe, truly believe, that you can leave Geneva with a treaty gavelled. Because since Busan, you have enabled a real surge in diplomacy. You've been engaging with one another in informal settings, in bilaterals, in regional and consultations, across the regions and across viewpoints. And that has forged approaches, ideas, and yes, solution. And that engagement has been critical to getting us where we are today, as is indeed the most intense process of preparation that I have ever seen, demonstrating that member states who have joined as members of this process really want this treaty. So I thank you for this productive diplomacy, which has begun to carve out a path to a possible agreement. Now, I do accept that this path is narrow and at times a bit precarious, with a steep drop on either side, but we are here in the Alpine country, where we're used to steep drops. So let us find a way, let us bind together to navigate this path. The only way to reach destination is by going together. I'm always inspired as I enter these halls here in Geneva. This city is the birthplace of modern multilateralism. And while the setup of the League of Nations was far from ideal, and while many voices were excluded and unrepresented, this city set in motion and saw the setting in motion of this noble notion that countries can come together to solve problems. And as we look out on the soaring heights of the Alps, let us reach for those heights as we take inspiration from the past, but build and shape for the future. I also invite you to draw inspiration from the establishment of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste and Pollution, which could provide important science for the Treaty on Plastic Pollution. By agreeing to this panel in Punta del Este just 2 months ago, member states proved yet again that multilateralism delivers, and now it's your turn. As you get down to negotiating, I remind you that, which you know, that the world wants you to succeed. The world wants and needs to tackle plastic pollution crisis. People are frankly outraged by the plastic in their environment. They are worried, they are watching, and rightly so. Plastic pollution is already in nature, in our oceans, and in our bloodstreams, and the plastic leakage to the environment is predicted to grow. And if we continue as we are right now, then we will see plastic pollution growing even more, with significant consequences for the environment, for economy, as yet indeed for human health. I know that you know this, and I also know that you know that it is in your hands to get this done and make sure that we get this treaty gavelled. It is in your hands to protect ourselves, the environment, and future generations. It is in your hands to turn the plastics pollution challenge into an opportunity of solutions and new beginnings. And I want to assure you that we at UNEP, we will be there to support you. But ultimately, of course, the path is paved by you. So I ask you to reach across the aisle and start crafting the chair's text into that final agreement. One that draws on the many areas of convergence, one that starts with real strength, but also includes the hooks for future developments, and one that sets the world on a path to end plastic pollution forever. Thank you.
I thank the Executive Director of UNEC for her remarks. I have now the pleasure of inviting the Director of the Federal Office for the Environment of Switzerland, Ms. Katrin Schneeberger, our host country, to deliver her opening remarks. Please.
Mr. Chair, Madam Executive Director of the United Nations Environment Programme, dear Inger, Madam Executive Secretary of the INC on Plastic Pollution, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues. It is a great pleasure for Switzerland to host these pivotal negotiations with the objective of finalizing a treaty text to put an end to plastic pollution. I am delighted to welcome you to Geneva, a city that embodies dialogue, cooperation, and a commitment to multilateralism. Geneva is a global hub for environmental governance, particularly in the field of chemicals and waste. The reason that brings us together is clear. We want to end plastic pollution. We want to protect human health and our environment. And we want to do that now. However, we must also acknowledge that multilateralism is facing challenges. Geopolitical tensions and financial crises can sometimes hinder our ability to act collectively. Let's demonstrate to the world that multilateralism is effective. Let's demonstrate to the world that countries are willing to find sustainable solutions. And let's write history again in the Palais des Nations. Excellencies, dear colleagues, writing history means engaging constructively, taking collective action and delivering concrete results. In the coming days, we have the opportunity to do just that. By negotiating core elements of an effective plastics treaty and by finding comprehensive solutions and measures across the full life cycle of plastics to address plastic pollution effectively. But in doing so, we must bear one fundamental fact in mind. Plastic pollution knows no borders. It is what we call transboundary pollution. It moves with rivers, oceans, wind, and trade. What is produced and discarded in one country can have devastating consequences thousands of kilometers away, harming ecosystems and communities that played no part in its creation. Because of its transboundary nature, plastic pollution cannot be addressed by any one country alone. Even the most ambitious national policies will fall short unless they form part of a coherent and coordinated global effort. This is why we need a legally binding international treaty, a treaty that is inclusive, science-based and robust. A treaty that unites all countries around shared objectives and responsibilities. And a treaty that supports implementation on the ground. Plastic pollution is a global problem that demands a global solution. Dear colleagues, all eyes are on Geneva as we work to deliver a historic outcome. A successful INC-5.2 will not only be essential to mitigate the environmental, social and economic threats posed by plastic pollution, but it will also send a strong signal for multilateralism. In this context, Geneva's existing expertise and structure are significant. I wish us productive negotiations, a spirit of openness, and a session that raises to meet the urgency of the challenges before us and the hopes that bring us together. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the Director of the Federal Office for the Environment of Switzerland for her remarks. And now I would like to invite our Executive Secretary, Ms. Jyoti Mathur-Philip, to provide her opening remarks.
Thank you.